So how are you doing? Aside
Good,
from that,
good. I can't complain. Health is good. Exercising a lot.
yeah,
Um,
it's good.
yeah, that's it. Still member. Right now, it's been a year member of the Armenian National Committee of Canada, which is the national board. The ANC has chapters. When we met, I was member of the Armenian National Committee of Montreal. Actually, I was the president. So
Yeah,
it's been a year. Since 2008, I've been active in the Armenian National Committee of Montreal, but it's been a year I joined the national board. So, as you know, we're a grassroots, human rights organization. We foster public awareness about the issues affecting the Armenian community in Canada and abroad. And we're kind of an advocacy group, of matters of the interest to the Armenian Canadian community. We're kind of the link between the community and the political bodies in provincial, municipal, as well as federal level.
that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
we met a long time ago, man. Like we met almost at the beginning when I started working in politics in 2007.
that's it.
I can't remember which event it was at, but
It
uh,
was a fundraising. I think that's when we met Jerry, and you were his responsable de bureau. And we came to one of your fundraisings. We met, and since we've been always in contact.
it's crazy to see how working in that kind of environment broadened up at least my horizons on what. Of course, I knew the Armenian community. You grow up in a city like Montreal that is so diverse. You know that there's other communities, but you don't really know the level of their involvement, right? And I remember when I met with you. And you explained just a little bit what you did. Obviously, like I said, we knew the community at large, but we did realize that, man, you guys have a strong and united community, especially with respect to the issues around everything
Mhm.
that happened and is still happening in Armenia.
Correct. I mean, the Armenian National Committee, it's been 50 years already in action around the world. When the genocide happens, Armenians have been dispersed everywhere. Initially, Greece, France, Egypt, that's where people went. Some of them came directly to the United States. And a big chunk went through the Syrian desert to Lebanon. And then at the beginning, 105 years ago, people were just surviving. And then throughout the years, they realized, okay, let's talk about the past. Let's talk what happened. And that's when the whole movement started. At one point became the focus of the Armenian National Committee around the world to get recognition, starting with one country, then the other, in the same way, one city, one province, etc. So that was the movement, just to first of all raise awareness, so that this tragedy just doesn't become part of history. It stays in active discussion in the political circles. And then eventually, you got countries one after the other recognizing the genocide Canada did. In actually, the House of Commons recognized the Armenian genocide in 2004. Then, during the Harper years in 2006, that became a kind of part of the government policy. So, and since obviously, as Armenians as well, we have other other things that we like to see. Would it be a trade between Canada and Armenia, strengthening the ties in certain areas? Also, there's a Nagorno-Karabakh issue, which is a contested region between Armenia and Azerbaijan. Um, Recently, we saw some skirmishes on the border, as you remember.
Right.
Things are going as well around the world. So we're just kind of a watchdog, make sure that whatever happens in Armenia, and also whatever happens to the Armenian community in Canada, we're
Yeah.
just trying to follow and make sure that we react, and also do some other work, self training, and human rights. And we're not only focused on Armenians. We work a lot with the other people who survived genocides, like the Rwandans, the Jewish community, etc. So this is what the Armenian National Committee does. And right now, the only focus in the last month was to make sure that what started between Armenia and Azerbaijan in actually a few months ago doesn't escalate and become a regional war. Because if you look at it in a way, I don't want to get into analysis, but something is happening in Azerbaijan. You know, oil prices are dropping. There's less money coming in. It's a heavily oil dependent country. So just to get the people of Azerbaijan during a pandemic, when the recession's coming, economic crisis, to deviate from that, they started this war. That's how we see it. And then on the other hand, you have Turkey, which is also, playing an important role as we speak. And a lot of things are happening for Turkey, and they're looking into some of the Greek islands, close, trying to do exploration. Um, we're just watching from abroad and saying we have to be careful what's happening. Also, I don't know if we can talk a bit about the region there. Turkey was eventually going to be part of the EU. That was the plan 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah, there's been ongoing discussions for years. Obviously, they have certain bilateral agreements. I honestly think that the in the context of what's been happening the last years, I think that chapter is pretty much closed. you know,
It is. Yes.
the region is very fragile right now. Turkey, in my opinion, has opened up fronts all over the place to the point where even high level analysts are wondering what exactly
Exactly.
is going on there, right? I mean, they came into Syria, so they've opened up that front with Russia. There's conflict in the Eastern Mediterranean, so that has historically put them in conflict with Greece and Cyprus. Greece has
Hmm.
signed
Hmm.
an agreement recently to determine the economic zones with Egypt and Italy, so that kind of frustrated Turkey as well. Um,
Yes.
there are there are agreements between Israel, Cyprus, and Greece for pipelines. So obviously that goes through the territory as well, and Turkey thinks they have the rights to that as well.
Hmm.
Obviously the fronts against Armenia while partnering up with Azerbaijan. I've been following that as well. There's just so many things happening, and there was they came very close to getting into an armed conflict there during the pandemic, where you had all these migrants traveling through Turkey going into Greece, and they were disguised as refugees, but in reality, these guys were armed civilians, right? Whether they were Syrian or Turkish or whatever they were, it's very doubtful to think that it wasn't it wasn't a pre-organized attempt, right, to flood Europe with God knows what, right? So obviously Greece had to play a key role in that, and thankfully they had the support of their European partners, which obviously it would be crazy if they hadn't. But that just goes to show you the relationship that Turkey has historically had with the European Union. I mean, they had this agreement where they were getting billions of euros to take care of refugees, to set up
Exactly.
camps, etc. And suddenly, because of the conflict in Syria and because of a disagreement with Russia, they said, you know what, screw it, fuck it, open the borders, get these guys out of my territory, which is the most irresponsible thing to do, right?
You look at it, and the last blow came when they decided to turn back Hagia Sophia as a
Yeah,
mosque.
yeah.
You know, if you look at even deeper, 10, 15 years ago, when you used to watch Turkish television, you used to see all these entertainment, you used to see a lot of,
They
the
had famous
subject.
soap operas.
Exactly, they
They had
do.
very
But
popular soap operas.
eh,
Yeah,
that is correct. Even in some of the countries we know, people keep watching. But the rhetoric kind of changed more and more and became nationalism. Even on TV, that you have those fighters. So it's reflecting everywhere that they realize they're not going into Europe, so they want to create themselves as the heads. And don't forget, Turkey wants to become a regional power also in the Muslim countries.
yeah.
So historically, the power in Muslim countries a long time ago was in Egypt back then. And eventually, with oil power, Saudi Arabia took over a lot of that decision-making powers and had its influence in the Arab countries. Then we had the problem between Saudi Arabia and Qatar. If you remember a few years ago, when Qatar decided to, hey, I have money too, and I can buy influence and have. So now Turkey is another player, and there's other things happening amongst there. So it's interesting to see how this is going to all turn out. And then, Lebanon.
This is a region that has consistently been in hot water, right? I mean, there's so many factors, there's so many things at stake. The biggest thing I think this week was the United Arab Emirates that signed a peace agreement with Israel, and that threw Turkey through the roof. You know, and I think that's it's a big thing, right? I mean, it's about, it goes way beyond just peace in the region. It goes into regional cooperation and between two nations that historically have been at each other's throats, right?
True. And I don't know if we can talk a bit about Lebanon, George, because I'm Lebanese Armenian, so
Yes,
I grew up
yes.
there. So, and with everything happening in Lebanon, which is the topic of the week or the last 2 weeks,
Yeah.
it's interesting to see how that's going to reflect the whole situation in Lebanon.
So what's
If we can,
happening over there? I mean,
so,
that government has been in kind of crisis management for months now, right?
correct.
And in addition to all of that, you had this huge thing that happened,
Yeah,
caused so many casualties, and the government just resigned in a block, right? They all just stepped down.
they did. They did. So, just if we can maybe uh, speak about what happened, the most circulated version was that there were 2,750 tons of ammonium nitrate, which detonated.
Now,
Um,
was that in the boat? The boat was docked in the port, or they
no,
had put it in a warehouse or something?
no. So this was stored in a famous hangar called Hangar Number 12. So how did these explosive products ended up in Beirut? It's still not 100% clear. Yet, if you look, only if we can speak about the facts, they were on a Russian-owned cargo ship
Yeah.
with a Moldovan flag, carrying these products from Georgia to Mozambique 7 years ago. Okay, so according to the lawyers representing the boat's crew, the ship was docked in Beirut after facing some technical problems at sea in September 2013. So it never got repaired. The ship's cargo was then offloaded into the port of Beirut in hangar number 12, which is where the whole thing fire started. So, and this is in the heart of Beirut,
Yeah.
at the heart of Lebanon, because the port is right facing the capital,
Hmm.
and it's one of the highly densely populated areas
There he is. Yeah.
in Lebanon. So there was some internal communication between port authorities and the judicial system, saying that these are highly explosive products and it cannot stay there. But it fell in the cracks. So I mean, I don't know the details, but one thing is for sure: we can say that the corrupt system and the corrupt whole government structure, bureaucratic structure of Lebanon is responsible for what happened. And
It's just flat out neglect, I mean, it's just
sure,
yeah.
and as you said, this was a transition government. Lebanon has been going in the last year through an extreme financial and currency problems. The Lebanese pound was always pegged with the US dollars. So $1 was always 1,500 Lebanese pounds. And the government was able to maintain that for the last 25 years without a problem, because they were artificially pumping and selling some of their money. And then there was the whole issue that banks, instead of participating in the whole economy, they were advertising that there's a lot of Lebanese expats that live in the region, Dubai, Abu Dhabi, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and all those people put their money in Lebanon, and they get 5 to 6% on the US dollars, and as high as like 10% on the Lebanese currency. And what do the banks do in their turn? Instead of investing that money or lending the money to the economy, so companies could grow, buy equipment, etc., line of credits, they buy government issued bonds.
Mm.
And the government, year after year, issues bonds. The banks, the local banks, buy those bonds at, like, say, 7 they give the depositors 5. And it's kind of I don't want to say a Ponzi scheme, but it looks kind of, because the government is never able to pay back the debt because there's not enough economic power. And don't forget, Lebanon is I would say maybe one of if you look at 200 most corrupt countries, Lebanon is in the 130s.
Wow.
And it's a very confessional country, which means that corruption is spread and people work for the government, and the power starting from the presidency up to even small jobs is divided. So example, if we hire 10 Muslims in the port authorities, we have to hire 10 Christians. If we hire one guy here, we have to, it's funny. I don't know if you want to take a bit of the time to speak about how Lebanon is in terms of history. It's a pretty unique country.
Mm-hmm.
It was when the Ottoman Empire collapsed, Lebanon back then was the Greater Syria. It was part of Greater Syria, was under the French mandate. The French and English took over some mandates, so the Lebanon was part of the French mandate. It was kind of the state of Lebanon in Greater Syria. This is in the 1920. And 1926, Lebanon split from Syria and the name became Lebanese Republic, still under the French mandate. And in 1946, Lebanon declared its independence. So back then, there was more Christians living in the country. So they decided to get the parliament in a certain way. Like for every 6 Christians, you get 5 Muslims. But then there was this Taif Accord in the 90s, and then since there's 128 seats in the government, which is an even number. Normally governments are sometimes odd, but it's an even number, and it's half Christian, half Muslim. So basically, in terms of rankings, the most seats are held by the Christian Catholic Maronites, which probably you know. Then you have the Sunnis and the Shiis, the second. You have the Greek Orthodox. You have the Greek Catholics, Druze, Armenians, Alawites, Protestants. So every seat is predetermined. So at the end of the day, you're going to end up in the parliament always 34 Sunnis, 34 Maronites, 27 Shias, 27 Muslims, 14 Greek Orthodox.
But is that still reflective? Is that still reflective with the population?
No, it's not. It's not. It's been maybe over 50 years. I don't know the number, that there hasn't been any census to determine what's. But it is believed
that is a very questionable democracy.
It is. It is. I mean, it is believed that probably, I don't know, more than 65% probably are Muslim right now.
Yeah.
Nevertheless, the president of the country, the president of the republic, is always a Christian Maronite. The prime minister is always a Sunni Muslim. The speaker of the house is always a Shiite, and the executive body, it's kind of equally held by the president and the prime minister. It's not a presidential system. It used to be more, but they took over some. The president, after the Taif, relinquished some of its powers. And so now it's the government is headed by the prime minister and the president, kind of together. Yes, it is weird.
Yeah.
And the speaker of the house, which they call the president of the parliament, also has more role than just the speaker of the house, which in countries like Canada, people don't know.
Very neutral, very objective role.
Exactly. So it is like that. And then there was the Civil War in 1975. So 1975 to 1990, there was the Civil War, and the current political parties represented in parliament and their leaders, with a few exceptions, have all had an active role during the Civil War.
Yeah.
So you look at a country.
Everyone is biased, basically.
Exactly.
You know what's strange to me, that even after all that conflict and the fact that they still haven't been able to kind of reorganize and restructure so that it could be much more representative with the population today, it's strange to me a little bit. What's happening right now? Like, what is being suggested? Is it like the crisis right there? Is it just a matter of putting in a new government that's going to be responsible enough to take things into control, or are they talking about a structural change, like a constitutional change?
Well, there. Are we talking about what is the Lebanese people's will?
Yeah, like right now, like
What do
what's
people
going
want?
on? Yeah,
I
because
mean,
the
listen,
Lebanese have been in the streets for months now.
that is correct. Listen, I can't tell you that the younger generation, sees Lebanon as a more laïque. How do you say laïque in French, in English? Yeah,
Yeah, more
non. I forgot the word. Anyway, like a
secular.
non secular. There you go, a secular country. Lebanese people see Lebanon or aspire to have Lebanon, which is more secular than it is. But the reality of the fact is, the existing people in power and the people living in Lebanon have been used to it. So it's going to take generations of people
Yeah.
to decide that we want to get rid of. It's funny. Let me give you an example. Everything from marriage to divorces to inheritance is managed by the church and the mosques.
Wow.
So if you're an Armenian and your father dies,
You got to look.
versus you're exactly, and versus you're a Sunnite or a Shiite or a Christian, it's not the same. So the Armenian church has decided, example, if somebody passes away, the wife gets 25%, the kids divide the remaining 75%.
Yeah.
That's the, but it's not the same. So even in divorces, in some religions, if you don't have a son, then the deceased brother gets equal rights. So sometimes people change their religion for. So
Wow.
everything is managed. Imagine it's not like you cannot just go to the court and divorce. You have to go to the court which is held by the church.
That
To
is
the
crazy,
it's
especially considering how easy things are over here, where you pick up the phone, literally, you call a government service, and things are done within
mhm,
minutes, right?
mhm.
I can't even imagine what things must be like to get your stuff in order.
Yes, and this whole thing that I told you about Christians and Muslims getting 50% of the government, it also trickles down to all the public servants.
Hmm.
So example, if we are the port authority or we are the Ministry of Health, it has to be certain seats, equal Muslims, equal Christians on the board. So it's not about merit, and it has to be example. You get it's funny. It's unconceivable for somebody looking from outside to say. So basically, you telling me that Ministry of Health, Ministry of Education, the teachers, etc. It's per sect. Yes, a lot of the things I'm talking higher level are per sect. So it means that example, we have four governors of the central bank. The first one has always to be a Maronite. Then you have a
It's
second one,
crazy.
and the fourth governor is always an Armenian. So it's predetermined because that's how they share power.
Yeah.
It is like it is a country like that. And imagine when you have a country like this, everybody's used to what they call wasta, bribing
Yeah.
or favoritism, and the whole country works like that, and we got used to that. Like when I went to do my driver's license, basically I just sat in the car, went drove like 10 meters, they gave me the paper, that's it. A lot of people don't even do that. They just get the when they're 18, their father just brings them happy birthday, they get the driver's
That
license.
is incredible.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
It's at that level.
So you still have family there? You still have friends? Has anyone been affected by what's going on right now, especially with that blast?
Yes. Yeah. I still have family there. We have our house, my grandmother's house. My grandmother's house was kind of all the glasses and the doors were shattered, but luckily nobody lives there. I have two aunts that have been damaged, and they had to do some repairs. So my uncle's taking care of them.
Yeah.
Um, so that's it. Yeah, a lot of friends. I'm still in contact. Many people would like to leave Lebanon. Um, I think there's a will to change Lebanon, but given the situation of the country, how it's based, the confessionalism, it will there will never be a way out.
Hmm.
That's what I think. And even if President Macron went there, you remember he went there just to show solidarity with the people. I'm not sure how the political class is welcoming that move, because everybody wants a piece of the cake, and
Yeah.
that's how it's always been.
So what's going to happen now? There's forced elections.
The government resigned, so to be honest with you, they're going to do elections. I don't know the date. I'm not sure if anything's going to change in the structure. Mind you, there's still going to be 50% of the parliament Muslim, 50%
Yeah,
Christian.
yeah.
So that cannot change unless they change the constitution.
Right,
So regardless how you flip it, you're still going to end up
right.
with the same people. Money flows. Like getting money to vote is a very common thing in Lebanon. So you go, you vote, you get your $100.
You get paid, yeah.
Very, very common. People opening their bags, giving $100 for. It's very.
But at the end of the day, it doesn't really change anything because there's a predetermined number of seats. It's not like you're paying people to go vote so that you can have a majority in parliament, because they have already a pre-established number of seats that they can get.
Exactly, and most political parties are religious parties.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's not like you have the Liberal Party or the Conservative Party. You have a party that all the members are 90% of the members are, example, Shia, and then you have a party that most members are Christians. So it is
It's a
strange.
weird reality because we've grown into a system that is completely different, right? And I see these
Hmm.
things even with my family in Greece, where because I lived in Greece, and it was painful to get any government service, right? I mean, things have changed since I left. I mean,
Yes.
dramatically, for the better, of course. And you try to explain people how things work here in Canada, and they just don't understand. They don't know that something like this is possible. A funny example: I have a friend living in Greece, and him and his family used to live in Montreal for a long time before they moved back. And his father reached the retirement age, and he's
Hmm.
telling his son now, he's like, "Oh man, we have to leave now. We have to book flights. We have to go back to Canada. I have to go back to Montreal. I gotta fix my pension. I gotta make all these arrangements." And his son is like, "What are you talking about, man?" So he picks up the phone and he calls, and literally in a matter of a couple of days, it was all done. It was done. You know, it's like people don't understand that if you have an efficient system, it's going to trickle down to make your life easier as well. And I just found that funny. I was like, what are you talking about? Imagine the guy thought he had to book a ticket, fly to Montreal, come here, stay for I don't know how long he thought he was going to have to stay here to take care of his pension, man. You understand?
Hmm.
I think we've come a very long way over here in establishing, at least on that front. I think Canada stands among the best in the world in terms of government services. I don't think I've seen anything that compares to this. Probably the
No.
U.S. too. I mean, the U.S. is probably up there.
Yeah, you have
Uh, but yeah,
Australia,
no, I
probably
totally,
those
I
countries.
totally, I totally understand what you're saying, because I experienced that in Greece. Obviously, not to that extent, like it probably is in Lebanon, but uh, different lifestyle, man. Different, different lifestyle. Uh, Tell me a little bit about the organization over here. Now, is this linked with the Armenian community, or it's a completely different body? Because you guys have your community, you have a school over here, you have a high school that's been going on for a long
Hmm.
time.
Hmm. Hmm.
The advocacy group, is that linked to that? Is it part of it, or is it completely different?
No, I mean, in a way, we represent the organizations that are active in the community center.
Hmm.
So we have, have the scouts, you have the school, the church, etc. So these are we are not a kind of a structure that does anything, but we represent all these
Yeah,
organizations
kind of
in a
like an
way.
umbrella.
So
You're kind of like an umbrella organization.
exactly like an umbrella, or we're kind of the les porte-parole.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
speak on behalf of them if there's anything, and also the will of the community. I mean, I would say part of the community. There are other parts that we don't represent.
Hmm.
But this chunk of Surpagop, Laval, as well as Montreal, we represent. We're kind of the link between the community and the the politicians.
How easy was it or difficult was it to create that, to open up those doors into government? I mean, how do they perceive you? I've been following what's going on in Armenia, and I saw the exchanges that you've had with the Minister of Foreign Affairs and other
Mhm.
government officials, and they were really quick to make statements on those issues, compared to, for example, what happened in, what's happening in Greece right now, and with respect to what you said about Hagia Sophia, not much has been done from a government perspective. So I imagine that the lobby effort there has been very efficient.
I mean, we worked with them. We have our executive director as well. He's a kind of registered lobbyist, if I would say. But we are just grassroots people. We do this because we believe in the cause, and then we help people. We during elections we're there helping. We support. We have a list of people we support during elections. We ask the Armenian community to vote for those candidates that we believe are friends of the Armenian community.
Hmm.
And based on that, we just create links year after year. And then when we need them in such an important matter, which I might say it's also a fact that that's what was happening. It's not like we're asking something that didn't happen.
Hmm.
Azerbaijan started a war with Armenia.
Hmm.
And what we wanted them to say is that they're condemning the aggression. So they were they reacted, and they wished that peace would be established as fast as possible, so that the region, it doesn't become any regional problem or even just war between two countries in the middle of a pandemic that the world is seeing now.
Why do you think it's important for you to be involved at this level? I mean, how did this all start for you?
How did it start for me? Well, I was active. I was the president of the Armenian Youth Federation of Montreal, and with the age, I kind of graduated and was
They
no
kicked you
longer.
out. They forced
They
you
kicked
out.
me out. Exactly. I knew about the Armenian National Committee, which was there, so I joined the Armenian National Committee of Montreal. And then, I was just a member. I wasn't involved in any of the parties. And then, during the by-elections of Jean-Marc Fournier, probably 2010, I got introduced to him. So, and then since I became part of the executive committee, Liberal PLQ of Saint Laurent. I've been his campaign manager as well in 2014, and then I saw in the Liberal Party of Quebec some of the values that I believe in,
Hmm.
and then I took that route. A lot of there are Armenians who believe in other parties.
Yeah, for sure.
So I'm a member of the Armenian National Committee of Canada, and I was of Montreal, but I was a member as well because that's the party.
I want to talk to you a little bit about the community, because obviously I have a lot of friends in the Armenian community, and it feels, similar to the Greek community, but I would say even more so with respect to the Armenian community. They're much more attached to the community, to their belonging. For example, to their heritage and all that. I feel like there's a much stronger bond with Armenia, with your language. And this is not to downplay anything else from any other
No,
community, but I just feel that there's a much stronger bond within the Armenian community from a young age. I mean, I don't know how old you were when you came here, but is that something that, in general, in the community, it's something that is passed down, like the involvement to the community and to the active participation socially?
listen, I wouldn't say we're much different than the others. We are newer than the others. If you look at the Greek community, a lot of the Armenians came later than the Greeks, or
Right.
the big wave came after that. So it's still, time hasn't passed that much. We keep the language alive. We have the schools, like you guys have the schools, Demosthenos or Socrates. We have our schools here, which we're very fortunate to have. And a lot of the parents believe in the quality of the education and the importance of keeping our language alive. And I think I won't say that we are more conservative or we give more importance to the values, but what I could say is, if I look at the Armenians living in the U.S., the East Coast, a which have been there even a few generations back, we kept more our culture. But I'm not sure if with time that's going to stay alive. I wish, but I'm
Yeah,
being realistic. I realize, my kids, my grandkids,
it
as
probably
time
won't.
passes, I'm not sure how much they're going to keep of our culture or our language or
Yeah. Well,
any
look,
of the.
there's an undeniable truth that lies in this society, right? Where you have to kind of go through assimilation. I mean, I look at myself, for example. I didn't marry a Greek girl. My kids, obviously, I speak to them in Greek, but they're never going to speak the same, level of Greek that I speak. The same way that
Correct.
I can't speak the same level of Greek that my parents speak, right? So
That's it.
there's this thing happening. So at some point, it's a matter of just, like you said, maintaining the heritage alive through whatever institutions that you put in place, right?
Exactly.
And I think that you've done a tremendous job at uh, within the Armenian community. The question that I always had, and not only with the Armenian community, but even with the Greek community, is to what extent have we kind of secluded ourselves from Quebec society because of the fact that we're raised so much into our little bubble, right? You're gonna go to the Greek school, and then there's the churches, and then there's the activities, and then everything that you do, you're pretty much surrounded by people that are like you, right? That believe the same things that you believe in, that have the same traditions, the same culture, and that to me was always a question. I realized that when I went into high school, because you guys have a high school. You've had a high school for a long time. The
We
Greek
did.
community only got their high school permits like maybe a couple of years ago. So after grade six, I mean, we all went to regular French high schools, and that's where we were exposed to other kids, of different
Mhm.
cultures and different languages and different backgrounds. And it was a little bit of a shock, like culturally for at least for me. I don't know
Mhm.
about the other
Mhm.
people, but and I always wondered, what if we had that high school as well, and we went on living our lives well into our, uh, teens, our young adult years, living in that bubble. I mean, and that's where I always think about you guys, and that's why I say, like, you are much more, like, you're much more attached together because you have all this time, and there's this longevity in your journey, right? So I mean, for me, like I said, it was a little bit of a culture shock to go into this environment, but at the same
Mhm.
time, I enjoyed it because it kind of opened up these doors, right, that didn't exist before, right? Like it was like this exit from this bubble that we were living in, and you
Mhm.
kind of
Mhm.
finally understood what's out there. And I'm just wondering, in your case, since you guys go well into high school, how is it afterwards when you go into CEGEP or university? I mean,
Yeah, I mean, I can't say for myself because I didn't do it here, but my wife did, and then I don't know. I can't tell you how it is to leave that bubble and go directly. I mean, I believe more as time passes, more the bubble is going to be smaller and smaller because our kids are going to get more exposed. But
well,
you're talking
it
into
depends, though. It depends because, again, the structure that you have put in place won't change, right? The
no,
journey that your wife
but
went through, like from elementary all the way until the end of high school, is still going to remain, right? The only difference is that, uh,
but it's not
you
only
know,
the school, George.
yeah, it's the
Look at it
environment.
this way. Look at it this way. Did your father have only Greek friends?
Yeah,
You don't have only Greek
exactly,
friends. So
exactly.
so as we're growing, yes, we are going through the same school. I believe I see it that way. But right now I don't have only Armenian friends. So I have French Canadian friends,
Yeah,
other.
yeah.
So my kid is going to be exposed from an earlier age to those people and their kids. So he will be maybe not living in the bubble because we've lived in a bubble. Yes, and I grew up in a bubble,
Hmm.
and then yes, it was. But I don't think at this point that my son's living in a bubble because he's being exposed to the And you know what? You said the Quebecois. You didn't say Canadian. I realized you said the bubble, and then outside the bubble was Quebec, not
Yeah,
Canada.
because we're in Quebec society, right?
Okay, but I was just thinking if you were referring to Quebec as in French or Quebec as the whole society, because we got this recent thing that Montreal is becoming very anglophone, and
is that a fact though?
you know what?
I'm not so sure of that. I think the French language is still very much alive.
Yes, it is.
In Montreal, especially in the workplace, and that I think has been demonstrated.
Okay, but you know what? I'm going to tell you something that it's really when I speak to Quebecois people, this is how I present them about the whole cultural issue. I tell them, I know successful, educated, perfectly French-speaking people that are not Quebecois, that do not know what is bye-bye, who is Marie-Pierre Morin.
Yeah.
So we live in so I'm always debating whether the language is more important are we focusing on the language itself, or are we focusing about the culture?
Yeah.
And that's the main thing. Yes, I'm not. I think I think there are a lot of jobs. I mean, I've been hired to do jobs where English was more important. I can't tell you that. Yeah, I mean, I've had jobs where English in Quebec where English was more important than French.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah, obviously it depends on the job, and if it has to deal with for example, relations with the rest of Canada or the US, or if you're doing business outside of Canada, obviously French is almost non-existent at that point, right? I mean, nobody speaks French outside of Quebec, France, and some other countries. But just to get back to what you're saying about the culture and the language, I think it's both. And a lot of people, when we were growing up, it was like the Bill 101, and everybody, it was so polarized, right? But the more I grew up, I realized how lucky we are to actually have that. Because I mean, look at your kids. They're going to get the chance to speak a language that they wouldn't have had the opportunity to learn anywhere else in this world. I mean, look at the percentage of French-speaking people in North America. It's so small, and the majority of that is Quebec, right? So I can understand the need to protect that. I think we should be protecting it. I just don't understand the craziness every time there's something that comes out in the media about the English language being more prominent, or the French. At the end of the day, to me, it doesn't really matter, because you're living in a context where, whether you like it or not, if you don't speak French, whether it's a good thing or not, if you don't speak French, I think you're disadvantaged here. And I have a lot of friends, that are still, they fall under that clause there where they can send their kids to English school. And I ask them all the time, I go, why are you sending your kid to English? Why? They're going to learn English no matter what. No matter what, they're going to learn English. So why not send your kid to, they're going to be, it's a fact. If you're going to stay in Quebec, you're disadvantaged if you don't speak French.
Absolutely. Listen, George, I'm always surprised that this debate exists, because English is my fourth language. So we're having this conversation in English. So I was born in Lebanon to an Armenian family. So basically, the first language I was taught was Armenian. Then I went to kindergarten, and then high school,
elementary school,
etc. And I was only introduced to English as a language and that system at grade 6. So till then, everything, math, physics, and chemistry, it's all in French. Armenian is the language it's our mother tongue, so we keep it alive. And Arabic was the language of the country, so you have to learn Arabic. So, and then you get introduced to English. And it's so easy to speak two languages. It's extremely easy to speak two languages, even three languages, if this is introduced at an early stage.
Yeah.
So for me, I'm always surprised that Western Canada doesn't do the effort to teach their kids French.
Mm-hmm.
And I look at it that way. I mean, why wouldn't people in Ontario want their kids to speak French? It's a beautiful language.
Well, they've had issues, right, with the recent government, where they've
they cut the funding.
Yeah, they stopped funding the French education. Look, I don't know, man. I mean, and look, maybe we're biased also because we're born or we've been living here for such a long time that for us this is normal, right? It's normal to grow up in an environment where you learn more than one language, especially if your
Hmm.
parents are immigrants, etc. Um, I don't know. Maybe m- obviously there's an advantage to speaking more languages, but if you look at the reality, maybe of someone that that is born in Alberta or Manitoba, if we were there now, we'd be thinking complete opposite. We're like, yeah, who cares about French? We don't need it.
No, I agree, but the more the merrier, right? I mean, it's a language, it's a skill. Africa is probably going to be the next Asia, and a lot of African countries, French is an important language if you look at it that way. The francophonie is becoming. I mean, basically, the importance of francophonie. It's not going to be France anymore. It's going to be Africa,
Hmm.
and I mean, whichever way you look at it, it's a language. It's a beautiful language,
Your
and
wife, your wife was born here.
no, in Greece.
Oh, she was
So
born.
she speaks Greek.
Oh, I didn't know
So
that. Okay.
yeah, she speaks Greek. I speak Arabic. She speaks Greek,
So, what do you speak to your kids?
Armenian,
You both
Armenian.
speak to them. Okay.
We both speak Armenian. Yeah,
Yeah,
uh, that's
that's
it.
interesting. I didn't know about that. I didn't know that about your wife.
Yeah,
Uh,
she's born in Greece and came here at the age of 9 or 10, I think. So she went through a class d'accueil, and that's where she learned French. So before coming, she only spoke Armenian and Greek.
yeah.
Then she learned French and then English.
Wow.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about the involvement that you guys have with Canada. Obviously, you're following everything that's been going on. What is your thought on all this chaos, man? With the Liberal government.
With the Liberal government, listen,
He had to take off his glasses. Let me
no,
concentrate.
no, I want to be fair. That's why I took off my glasses and I'm thinking. I think Canada is well positioned to weather the storm that we're going through. If I do an analogy, if you look at our, if we're talking about the Canadian government, we look at our credit rating. If we look at government debt over GDP, and we compare ourselves to other G7 countries or the industrialized world, if I want to make it a comparison, it's like we are this company and there's another company. We are both having the same growth, the same sales, and we're growing. And our competitors could always do better because they hire better salesmen, they cut costs, whatever. And then this pandemic happens. So if we're a company and we have our competitors, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to run short of cash. So what would a company do? First thing, call the bank, tell them I need money because I'm going to be miss liquidity. Then you're going to burn your existing cash if you have any reserves. And we're better positioned than a lot of countries because we're not indebted. People would like to buy Canadian bonds. And the last thing, if you're a business owner and things get really worse, you're going to turn and say, I have my personal house that I want to remortgage. So our competitors are not as fortunate. They have less cash. Their credit rating is worse. Their house is not as mortgage free as ours. So we are very well positioned to inject and pump money in the economy.
Hmm.
And eventually, when the whole thing is over, be stronger than our competitors. And that's how I'm looking. I'm saying, listen, the other guy's not going to survive. Example, we make valves, and there's a company in Czech Republic that makes valves, and we're competitors. I'm just, going down. So if Canadian government is going to inject money to make that company survive, while the Czech Republic government is not as well positioned to borrow, give the government subsidy 75%. Maybe those people are going to because they're getting money, right? The government's giving you 75%, so maybe you're going to do R&D. Anyway, we have this R&D subsidy. But what I'm just trying to say is we're better off many countries. So if the money is pumped, distributed strategically to companies that are in the big industries of export, whatever, I think what the liberal government is doing is right. We have the luxury of borrowing and going more into debt. Anyway, when Trudeau was elected, he said we're going to do the infrastructure because the rates are low, whatever, and now he can focus to this. The only thing I don't like is we keep on giving those $2,000. I like to see more that the companies get the money and they make the people work. So I'm better off seeing the money coming from the government go through companies, and companies use it than people sitting at home and getting money. Because
Well, yeah, because look, we have. I'm sure you have friends that have companies that have trouble hiring people now because they're just comfortable staying home and getting the money. Now,
correct.
with respect to the government, I don't have any objection on how they've handled the situation. I think it was necessary to pump in all this money in order to keep the industries alive. There's no doubt in my mind. The fear I have is up until 2020, like before this pandemic hit, you're driving deficits, man. And it's incredible because you have kids, I have kids. You're thinking, who the hell is gonna pay these things off? You understand? I mean, we're nearing what now, 300 billion in deficit.
Yes.
Like it's ridiculous. We're like we're nearly $1 trillion in debt. But whatever. Let's forget about the debt, for example, because the country has always had debt. But the point is that as long as you're not running deficits and paying the service to the debt, I mean, to some extent, it's fine. You're slowly paying it off. But running a deficit, I mean, how long do you think it'll be sustainable for Canada to maintain their credit rate with an accumulation of deficits like this? Like at some point, aren't they going to hit a wall?
I mean, listen, we don't know what's going to happen to oil. We're not sure if immigration is going to continue. More people are going to come. We're not sure if we're going to get foreign money coming in and all these condos being bought for the coming years in the high rises. I mean, they're betting on it. I mean, I'm not a very I am conservative in some ways, but then I believe we're not just digging holes and closing them up just to make people work. As long as we're injecting the money in the right way, um, I think we should be fine. I think we should be fine because at the end of the day, we're keeping those jobs. And when this is over, if other countries are not going to be able to maintain it, we're going to end up getting all the other jobs. I mean, I don't want to say we're competing against the others, but that's today's reality, right? Like EDC, BDC, Investissement Québec, their whole aim is to create wealth in the country. Their mission is to make sure that Canada exports, Quebec that's their mission. They're not like banks. The traditional banks are there just to make money. So these guys are through the government. They're just trying to make sure that. Canadian companies foster, and then I think at this point we need to do that. Again, I say I don't like that people get money sitting at home. Yes, for that period, people who work in restaurants, people weren't going out, so it was the thing to do. But then at the end of the day, we have to encourage people to go back to the workplace. I don't know how that's going to happen.
It's very tricky. I think this whole pandemic brought us into this into this situation where obviously it's unprecedented. You want things to work as they were before. You want that normalcy to come back, but at the same time, you're concerned on what kind of health impacts that will have on the population, right? Obviously, I have a lot of restaurateur friends. They've taken a huge hit. A lot of them have closed. And you have the city of Montreal saying, "Oh, come on, guys, come back downtown," doing all these things to draw attention back to downtown. But at the same time, you have all these measures that have to be respected. I don't go out. Why the hell would I go out? Why would I put my
Listen,
family at risk?
we don't either. I mean, I've never been to a restaurant. I mean, other than takeouts, and I've never been to a restaurant since the pandemic. I haven't sat in a restaurant.
Yeah.
I will go maybe in a month because we're invited to this engagement party. But that's it. It's going to be our first outing as a couple.
Yeah.
We go to friends. We sit in the backyards. It's a circle that moves around. That we keep it tight. But listen, Montreal is going to be a big issue. I don't know what's going to happen. Being the mayor of Montreal, it's not an easy job. It's not smiles and it's a tough job, and it takes. Now I'm being biased here, but it takes a Denis Coderre and a team like that to it. George, I mean, let me tell you something. I'm a guy who respects a lot of politicians. I have a huge respect for politicians, especially politicians in Canada. I'm not talking about Lebanon because these people are corrupt. They're only about their money. My wife worked for two very important. I was at the number 2 and number 3 of Montreal. So she was the political attaché of Pierre Desrochers and then Haruchi Tilian. Yeah, and these people I knew through my wife. They used to work, man. Denis Coderre and his team used to work a lot. I'm not saying working is enough, but they were competent, And then they had this big dream for Montreal. They did well. It was easier back then, I agree. But then right now, I'm not sure where Montreal is going.
I don't think anybody knows where they're going. I mean, look, I live in the South Shore, right? So I try not to come into Montreal, not because I don't want to, because I get frustrated every time I drive into Montreal. And, I've had a couple of municipal elected officials on the podcast, and there's never a clear answer on what's happening, right? Depending on where they are on the spectrum. And that's standard, right? You're going to have a politician. They're going to play the cards. They're going to play their party lines. It's disgusting, man. What's happening, especially downtown. There is no downtown. It's dead. Like, I mean, St. Catherine has been closed for 2 years now. And you have a mayor saying, "Look, come downtown." Where? How am I going to come downtown? Where
George,
am I going to park my car? I have 2 kids. I'm going to grab
exactly. Listen, once, maybe if it was 2 years ago, so we were like, maybe 4 or 5 couples wanted to go out. We ended up going to Laval. And I said, you guys realize we all live in Montreal. We all are Montrealers. But where do we go? Centropolis.
Yeah.
It's so convenient, so easy, and it's our reality, right? I mean, I'm not saying I'm old, but at a certain age, you don't want to. I'm tired of running and looking for a parking spot. I just want to go and park.
And you have the kids whining in the car. They're tired. A couple before the pandemic, I think it was right before Christmas, I think probably November or something like that. My wife, she's like, let's drive. Let's go to the Eaton Center downtown. Like right away, when I hear downtown and the car, I get this rash. I'm like, oh man, do I have to? She's like, it's gonna be fun. I'm gonna take the kids too. I'm like, you know what? Okay, let's go. We leave, and I live in the South Shore, man. The minute I cross the bridge, I'm downtown. I'm right there. So it took like 10 minutes. Crossed into the city. I was going around looking for parking for maybe half an hour. At the end of the day, I told my wife, look, we're going back home. Forget it. We turn around. There's no parking. I'm not going to carry kids now from one end of the downtown to walk into the Eaton Center. Forget it. We turn around. We went to just hunt. And this is the thing that I believe, the Montreal officials haven't understood. I agree with, the whole green thing and, the bike paths but do we really have that infrastructure in Montreal to close all these streets and turn them into bike paths? I disagree, right?
No.
I mean, you have your downtown core. It's the heart of the province. I mean, this is where everything is. What are you doing? I just don't understand. I don't get it.
I don't know. Anyway, listen.
I'm not the only one. Everyone. Tourism is dead. I mean, they come here. Remember last year, this whole thing about Kevin Hart in Montreal taking a picture next to a cone? I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah, I remember.
The guy became a meme. The guy took a picture and instead of saying, "Oh, Kevin Hart is in Montreal," look, Kevin Hart is stuck in traffic, or Kevin Hart is stuck in construction, or whatever. This is what we've become. It's unfortunate. And to some extent, I got to give credit to Denis Coderre, because I remember towards the end of his mandate, he came out and said, listen, we have work to do that is probably going to last about 20 to 25 years. I mean, the guy laid it on the table. He's like, look, this is the reality. But don't create a curtain. Valérie Plante was getting elected. She was saying, we're going to be the administration of mobility. What mobility, man? I'm stuck. Everywhere I go in Montreal, I can't move. I remember that clearly. She was on.
She never got elected. People didn't vote for Coderre. I mean, that's the reality. I was there. Well, I participated to the elections very hands-on, and then
what do you think
it is set.
What do you think is going to happen? I mean, you have your ear on the ground over there municipally.
Yeah.
Is Coderre going to make a comeback? Is he not? What's happening in that party?
I don't know. They were looking. I heard some rumors, some names of circulating that have aspirations to jump from. Even I heard names from provincial to municipal.
Former provincial.
And some current provincial.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I heard a name.
Like resigning and running in Montreal.
Yes. That was the last name I heard. But nothing more. They're looking for. That's the last thing I heard. That they're still looking for somebody to represent them and create a party. And it takes something, or else we're going to be. I mean, if there's nobody else running, I don't know what's going to happen. I mean, we're going to still stay where we are. And as I said, I have a huge respect for politicians, because I mean, how hard they work. I used to see some people's agendas. I remember like one time I wanted to meet to a meeting with Jean-Marc Fournier. So they were looking. You realize the guy wakes up at 5 till 6. He reads the news. Yeah, you realize the amount of work people put, and the remuneration is not huge, mind you. I mean, a lot of people say, "Oh, they're paid too much." Well, no, they're not paid too much money. The responsible, they're not paid too much money.
Politicians don't make money in Canada in general, and especially in Quebec. And I mean, look, the figures are public, right? Anybody can go check them out.
Yeah, exactly.
A basic member of the Quebec National Assembly is going to start off at 90 grand, I think. And with the committees and all that stuff,
exactly.
120, 130.
120.
You have people, man, that are millionaires that leave their career to run for office, something that I personally never understood. I appreciate it, and I think it's honorable to do so. Like, look at Morneau.
He left his fund. Whatever. Yeah, he had a $500 million fund.
I've been speaking about this poor man, like, to all my friends in the last couple of months, where you're sitting on top of an empire. Your wife's name is Kraft. Like, you have everything you want. You have a successful firm. You're among the elite in Canada, and you leave that all behind for a title. Because obviously, let's not kid ourselves. The guy knew he was becoming finance minister, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah, he was.
But
star candidate.
Do you not understand the pressure that job brings? Obviously, forget about the salary. Like, he doesn't need that salary. Let's understand that between what Morneau makes and the 150 or 160 grand that he makes as a minister is peanuts, right? So it's not about the money and especially when you look at the agendas, like you say, like the lifestyle they have no life, right? They don't see their kids. They don't see, forget about birthdays, forget about engagement, like forget about that. You're married to your job now, right? You're living off a suitcase. And all for what? Like, in this guy's particular case, it wouldn't surprise me if he resigns because of everything that's been happening now with all these scandalous things that are coming out. And maybe he knew, maybe he didn't, maybe he has, maybe has no part in them, whatever. That's a whole other thing. But you're putting your entire life, your entire credibility on the line, and everything is at stake, And I'm thinking about him because aside, regardless of the political aspect, there's the human being, right? And to have succeeded so much in your life, and for some reason, which is obviously personal, wanting to run for office and ending that political career with such a bad note.
It is going to be tough.
Yeah. It's not good, man. I remember Jean Chrétien famously said, in politics, what matters is how you come in and how you come out. The middle, nobody really cares, Forget about the middle. It's how you come in and how you come out, and both those things have to be on a high. That's the trick in politics, right? And it's difficult, especially today with all the social media. You're all over the place. You have so much accountability. People, like you said, do not understand how that whole atmosphere works, right? And the stress that these people go through. I mean, look at Kader. Kader came out. He did a series of interviews of how his life had hit rock bottom, right? Uh,
Hmm.
Even health wise,
Yeah.
and he turned it around, and good for him. But it's easy to criticize a politician, to blame, and to scream and yell. But putting yourself in their shoes is a whole other story.
I mean, absolutely, and not a lot of people are willing to leave the comfort of their life, especially in federal politics. Canada's a big country. It's not like a small country where the parliament and your home is probably an hour and a half away.
Or
Sometimes people have to travel miles and
yeah,
miles.
like municipal. You wake up, you drive to city council, and you
That's
come back. You're
it's
home all the
easy.
time.
Yeah, that's much easier for a work-life balance. But
Yeah,
so
imagine living in BC and you have to come to Ottawa 5 days a
exactly,
week, fly by.
exactly,
Like, it's crazy. It's crazy.
yeah. But I think we still have quality politicians. I'm
Mhm.
not saying most, but you compare to you look at the politicians, you still say we have quality politicians. I really like. I have like it's a hobby, and I like. I respect a lot of the politicians. Even if I don't agree with them, but they're like uh, people like Amir Kader. Like I respect the guy so much, although I don't agree. There are some politicians that you look at them and you say, "Wow, this guy, he was a doctor. He left because he believed in the cause. Maybe he's making much more money now and is much less hated and is happy walking around with. But then you look at this guy who left everything, you know, he had a cause, he had some beliefs, he thought things he could change things, create this party or whatever, grow this and look where they are now, and you look at it and you say, I respect that man a lot, although I don't believe. And that's where
I,
that feeling I'm trying to explain is that you respect. And, I know you guys at one point were head to head with America
look,
at certain issues.
I see what you're saying, and like I would never be able to sit with this guy and have any form of civilized conversation with him. Like, there's no way. Like, it's like two complete opposite ends. But I understand what you're saying, and yes, look, this is the beauty of the society that we live in. I mean, look, you want to run, regardless of what you believe in, as long as you don't promote violence or whatever,
Yeah.
any extremism.
Uh,
Uh, but in recent years, there's been a rise in populism, and to the point where it just nothing makes sense anymore.
no, but you agree. I mean,
And
I'm just putting Amir Kader and versus all the new guys in that party now.
yeah.
You or
Oh yeah, no,
like somebody have a huge respect. Like
alone. He was totally alone. I get it. Yeah, I mean,
Gilles Duceppe.
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
it's completely. But you respect the guy. You admire as a person. You don't agree with his beliefs. So you have this caliber of politicians that you know it's good to have them on the other side of the spectrum because at the end of the day, a, a parliament is gonna be multicolored,
Hmm.
and you want to make sure that whoever's on the other side of the color is a smart, his heart is at the right place.
Yeah.
You know, we don't have the truth. There's no absolute truth, so sometimes we need to get their opinions. So you want smart people, even in the opposite side, as a citizen. If I'm a liberal or a conservative or NDP or whatever I am, I want my quote unquote opponent to also have the best of its people representing because none of these parties hold the truth. And then you're going to make sure that they're well criticized, that sometimes, they sit on a table and then, there's some type
No,
of coalition agreements,
the
and
best
definitely when it's a minority government, you want to have the best of the people around the table.
the best thing I ever heard was Jean Charest in a closed meeting where he was talking and he was saying, they were in government, right? They were a majority government, and everybody was mocking the PQ guys and Quebec Solidaire, and the guy gets up and he's like, "Listen, I don't know what you want. I don't know what you believe. I don't know what you say. The only thing that you should never do is mock or underestimate your opponents because keep in mind that they're after your job." You know what I mean? They're after your job. So forget about that, man. That you got to leave that out of the door. Uh, this is a man that I completely respected, and his values, and just the way he saw political engagement, right? Just enormous respect for the people that were running under his banner,
Mhm.
under his leadership, and also the people that were against him. It's crazy, right? Because I mean, you have countries in the world where they're at each other's throats. You've seen those fights in parliament in India and in
Yeah.
China.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen
No,
here.
no,
Doesn't happen here.
exactly. Listen, and you look at it now. Let's bring back to some. When do you think the elections are going to happen? It would have been it would have been happening soon if not the
Federally,
pandemic. Yes.
federally. This is the funny thing, and I actually tweeted about this back in April. I was having a conversation with one of my friends, and this is for everyone to understand how quickly things can shift in politics. It's such um, a never changing environment, right?
Hmm.
This is back in April. My friend is like really conservative, hates the liberals, hates Justin Trudeau, and I was telling him, and very often I like to kind of bug him, right? I'm like, listen, man, if I were working in Justin's cabinet, the first thing that I'd be thinking about right now is launching a campaign in the fall. I mean, it would be the numbers were spectacular. They had
Absolutely.
managed the pandemic, relatively well. The conservatives have no leader. They're, just mathematically, their leader comes in at the end of August. So you drop the hammer in September. There, you catch them off guard. It was like in my head, I'm explaining to
And the NDP doesn't have cash.
yeah, yeah. Everyone is paralyzed,
Yeah.
and in my head, it's like this awesome strategy, that is unfolding. And I'm like, I'm guaranteed there's someone in that cabinet that has suggested or is probably even planning it. Not 2 months later, the complete opposite is happening, right? It's like, forget about an election now. I mean, how are you going to run an election? Everyone is attacking you. I mean, what a plunge these guys took within a matter of maybe a month and a half to 2 months with all these things happening. We charity, his family being involved, and it's just
Does it matter, George?
stuff that is
Does it
crazy.
does it really matter to the common Canadian? The common Canadian. I'm not saying the guy who's reading the news. I'm just saying the family that is one
You're,
of them maybe is on getting the $2,000. Maybe does it really matter at this point?
look. This is the thing. Your everyday Canadian has no idea what's happening. I mean, and this is the difficulty that I have often, because we see things differently, right? We see things from a different perspective because we know how things kind of work, and we're interested, and we read the news, and we listen to the radio every day. Your average Canadian has no clue who the prime minister is, probably. Maybe not. He's a very popular prime minister, but I don't know, the minister of finance, or, your average person, and this is not only in Canada, this is anywhere. They're not they're not aware of what's going on. They're not aware of what platform you have when the campaign comes out. Nobody reads election platforms anymore. Nobody does that. So everyone goes with the trends, right? And this is what Justin Trudeau has successfully done. He's popular. He's a popular guy. I mean, his team has done a very good job in making him very likable, because obviously that's also the person that he is. I know him personally. He's a very charismatic, very
Yes, of
lovable
course.
person.
I assume you know him personally because you guys were in the same
Yeah,
riding.
exactly. So
You worked
we
together,
work
yeah.
with him, and we work with his team, and I know a lot of his entourage, and but at the same time, I can't really blame the conservatives for banging out all these things. I mean, they're obviously doing their job,
They
and
are.
to some extent, whether you like Justin or not, whether you're a liberal or not, you're gonna start asking questions. I mean, forget about the management for the pandemic. We all agree that they did what they had to do, and good for you. But taking advantage of this pandemic to hand out, you know, hundreds of millions of dollars to these organizations or to these companies that have been backed by your ministers, or like, it's all these weird things that raise so much suspicion and so many questions. um
But is it enough? Is it enough to make Justin Trudeau fall? I don't think so.
I,
At this point, if tomorrow there are elections, who's going to care that Margaret Trudeau made $320,000 of
personally, my personal opinion is that I don't care. She's a private individual, and I've even said on this podcast, she can do whatever she wants. I have absolutely no problem that his mother and his brother got paid for whatever speaking. I don't care. I don't care.
I see the conflict of interest, but I'm saying the voter.
Yeah,
the voter is going to say.
Well, it depends.
Are we lucky? Are we lucky to be in Canada during the pandemic?
For sure, 100%.
We're extremely lucky, right?
Mm-hmm.
And most Canadians feel extremely lucky that they are in Canada during this pandemic.
Yeah,
and that would be the link with Justin Trudeau. There's a link between that, and people are going to vote. I think if there's an election today, and even if Peter MacKay is going to be and he seems to be leading in everything, right? Especially how much money he raised. I think it twice or more.
I'm hearing that Aaron O'Toole is in the lead, but anyway, we'll see.
I just checked who's raising how much, so I saw that. Anyway, I think there's not enough of negative stuff, especially that people don't care if the government's borrowing for the future of their grandkids. Nobody's doing the math. How am I going to pay for that? It's not your credit card. You don't care. And you know what? And right now, there's not a budget to balance. We could still borrow. If in 2 years or a year and a half, then you're going to say, okay, even the Liberal government is going to say we have to go back to reducing our deficit.
They said they were going to do that by 2015, which they didn't. 2019, sorry.
Okay.
Which they obviously didn't. But it's what you're saying is true, and it's all about perception, right? But at the same time, it comes down to strategy, and where it counts the most is Ontario and Quebec. And if the Conservatives pick it up in Quebec, and you know how judgmental we are in Quebec, right? I mean, it could work. I mean, I understand that people probably don't care or don't don't look at these things, or maybe don't even know about them or hear about them. But
who's going to take? You think the Conservatives is going to get, or the Bloc is going to go higher, or the NDP? Not the NDP. But
I have a feeling the Bloc is going to bring up their vote in Quebec.
Yes.
I don't know if the Conservatives are going to make any gains. I don't know, but the Bloc, man, Yves-François Blanchet is an exceptional person, and I got to know from the time that he was in Quebec City. He did well, man. He did well in the last campaign.
He's an eloquent man, very charismatic,
super talented. And look, the truth is that he's the one that holds the balance of power in Ottawa. He can make this government fall anytime he wants. But you look at the numbers, right? You look at the polls, and in April, Justin was just way ahead of everyone because the pandemic, and in situations of crisis, people are always going to look up to the government, right? So that's where he was doing well. You look at it now; some polls have him neck and neck with the Conservatives, and they don't even have a leader yet. So I thought that for sure September, October, we're going into an election. I'm not so sure he's gonna do that now.
Hey, can we hold an election, you think?
Why not?
Yeah.
With the pandemic, you mean?
Yeah.
They're doing it in the States. I don't know how they're doing it, but Donald Trump doesn't seem to want to accept the voting mail. But I don't know. It would be.
I mean, it's not going to be that difficult if they're going to make 2 meters and 1 and 1. Anyway, it's not a social event. It's just you get in, you vote, you get out. So
at the end of the day, I mean, you can extend the hours. Usually the polls usually close like at 8 p.m. or whatever. You can have it, I don't know, 24 hours. To allow people to have the time to go vote with all the social distancing measures and all that stuff. I think everything is possible. I just don't think, based on their performance the last 2 months and everything that has come out. And man, you got to give it to the Conservatives. They're doing their job phenomenally well. I mean, every single day, every week, there's something.
They're hammering.
Yesterday, I was reading with Stephen Guilbeault that he was being paid because there's this firm, this investment firm that he was consulting with, and he was paid. He was continued being paid as a consultant, and that firm received I don't know how many millions of dollars from the government of Canada. Like, there's all these things.
No, I didn't hear that. Okay.
Yeah, I think it came out yesterday, before yesterday. This is what bothers me. It's like you have a clear situations of conflict of interest, and I mean, what the hell is going on? Like, the other thing about what's her name, the chief of staff? I forget her name. Justin's chief of staff. God damn, I forget her name. Anyways, her husband was involved. I don't know if you read this. He was in an organization that manages mortgages, I think, and they got $80 million from the government to manage some part of the CMHC that they gave
Okay, I
away.
see. Okay.
And her husband is is a VP, and it's like, come on, man, like what the hell's going on over here, you know? And she's like, Katie Telford, that's her name, and she's like, no, no, no. From the very beginning, when he got that job, uh, I took a distance. I put a whatever you call uh, something, a blind on the email so that she doesn't see what's going on. But at the end of the day, are you seriously telling me that no one at the prime minister's office, no one in the cabinet, no, in the ministerial cabinets know who your husband is and what he does and who he represents? I mean, even if you had absolutely no part in any of this stuff, you had nothing to do with any of the negotiations, you had no communications with anyone whatsoever regarding this issue, everyone still knows who your husband is. You know what I'm saying? So, and these are the things that the concern. I don't know where they're digging this thing up, man. But I'm telling you, every week there's something new. I mean, obviously the We Foundation hurt them. It hurt them
Yes.
bad, and I don't think they're out of the woods yet. We'll see. I mean, at this point, I mean, I'm speechless. There's nothing really to say. Like every single week, there's something that comes up as if it's some orchestrated thing. They've been holding on to these things.
So you think that it's being leaked in a timely manner to the media strategically?
Oh, for sure, for sure.
Timely. Okay, so
For sure. I think what they did, I think what the conservatives did, they took all the measures that the government announced, the special measures that they put in place for the pandemic, all the funds, where they're going at, and they just had the research department working overtime. Where's this money going? Who's in charge? Find out if there's any links to them, blah blah blah. And look, they're coming out with all these things. They're going to go back in September now, the new parliament session. It's going to be very interesting. Everyone is speculating on a vote of confidence. um I don't know, man. It's gonna be very interesting come September.
It's time for change, I guess.
I don't know. Is
Let's
it?
see how people.
Uh,
I don't know. Listen,
at the end of the day, it comes back to what we're saying. You know how many people were shocked that Justin, from my entourage, they were shocked that Justin won in 2019. They're like, "What the hell happened? How could this guy win? Can't they see? He promised to balance the books. We're in $80 billion of deficit. What the hell are people blind?" I'm like, listen, guys, it really doesn't. I had the exact same arguments that you had, that you have now. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. What matters is perception. What matters is how beautiful he is and how lovable he is and how charismatic he is, and the large crowds, and it's all about image, man, in politics sometimes. And the content, yes, it's there, but very few people actually pay attention to it. And I got to understand that from our elections. I mean, I was involved for whatever, over 11 years. We had how many campaigns? 2007, 2008, 12, 14, and 8, 5 campaigns, man. You know how many people actually spoke to me about our platform? Minimal. Minimal. Nobody cares. Nobody
yeah,
cares.
you just have to have it so that the media reads it,
Nobody cares.
they argue it, and then that's it. The people.
I can tell you, Varant, I can tell you honestly that while campaigning, because our riding was unique, right? It's Park X and Villeray, but I can tell you in Park Extension, very rarely did we even talk about platform, because nobody knows. So it was just very, human interactions. Like that was our campaign. Villeray, different story. There we had to do our homework, because people are much more aware. They follow. But Park X, nobody, nobody knew.
They just like you.
Yeah, or they hate you, whatever. But
Yeah.
and I assume it's the same thing in other writings as well. I mean, I'm not, we're not putting, I'm not secluding just that one writing, but it's the same thing everywhere, and it's the reality, and I've accepted it. And I know it doesn't make sense to certain people that aren't, kind of more involved in politics like we are, where they just don't understand because they follow the news, they read, they look at the numbers, and they're like, "How the hell is this guy winning?" And I'm like, because it doesn't matter. The stuff that you're looking at doesn't matter. I don't know, man. Let's end this, man. What are you guys working on right now? What is the Armenian National Council doing, and what are you focusing on?
Well, as we speak, it's the 100th anniversary of the Treaty of Sèvres. So we've been posting some videos and etc. But the next step is just getting ready for the next elections, keeping an eye on what's happening in Armenia. Lebanon is a focus as well. You know, as soon as the pandemic broke, we sent a letter to Justin Jokic. Don't forget where it got hit. It's densely populated. The Armenian sector. Armenians live across the port, so we've been very much affected, and so we're just trying to do fundraisings. Just last month, we did a fundraising. The community did a fundraising. Over 200,000 was sent to Lebanon because of the financial and pandemic crisis, and now this. So there's other obviously fundraisings happening to come to solidarity with the Armenians in Lebanon. Just hoping that there's no escalation at the border, and then we're going to see how as Armenian Canadians, we're going to weather the storm. Our community centers, our schools are definitely like every other organization or business going through its challenges in terms of fundraising, money coming in. So we're going to see how that's going to reflect our community and its resources. So we're definitely going to see if there's anything the committee could do.
Good stuff.
And then that's about it.
Dude, thank you so much for doing this. I appreciate your time. I know that you're probably away from your family. I don't want to keep you much longer. Hopefully, when all this craziness goes away and we return back to some sort of normalcy, we can grab a coffee or lunch or whatever, man, just to see each other again.
Absolutely. So thank you for having me, George.
I appreciate your time, buddy.
Keep on doing it.
Thank you, sir. I'll see you soon.
Absolutely.
Ciao.
Ciao.